Hello and welcome. I'm Rob Salafia, CEO of Protagonist Consulting Group, and I'm very excited to provide this overview on story and storytelling for all of you. It's 1975. I'm standing on a train platform in Chandigarh, India. I'm on a 4-month student exchange program, junior year abroad in college. Suddenly, this young man about my age wearing a turban comes up to me and says, "Excuse me, but do you speak English?" We immediately dive into conversation. He finds out that I have a couple of days off before attending a mindfulness retreat in northern India. He invites me to stay with his mom, dad, and sister for the weekend. Over those 2 days, I become immersed in the Sikh culture, take long walks with his dad, and attend their weekly service. I'm sitting cross-legged in a large round temple listening to extraordinary music being made by a tabla player and 2 harmonium players. The lead singer has dark sunglasses on and a voice like Ray Charles. Spellbinding. It was at this moment when I truly realized that as people on this planet, we have much more in common than we do differences. We need to take the time to discover our shared experiences and celebrate what makes each of us unique. So why did I tell you this story? Stories are a powerful way to share lessons learned, illustrate leadership values, and create engaged dialogues around change. In this short video, I'll clarify exactly what storytelling is, the different types of stories there are, and how to apply them in various situations. Now, how great would it be if you were able to step into any leadership moment with confidence and deliver a resonant, impactful, and memorable story? Great, right? So what is a story? Well, I'll tell you what a story is not. It's not a list of facts. Stories bring facts to life. Stories are not tasks to be completed. Stories express a goal, a journey, and an end result. Stories are not a cold account of what you want others to do, but a vivid description of experiences, lessons learned, and visions of the future that create meaning and inspire action. Think for a moment about a recent presentation you attended that captivated your interest. What do you remember about it? I'm quite sure that the things you remember the most was the stories the presenter told. These were the vehicles that contained the facts the presenter wanted you to remember. To quote Maya Angelou, people will forget what you said, forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. This is because feelings and emotions are best conveyed through visual imagery and stories. Stories allow us to feel a part of a greater journey. And we don't need to overcomplicate stories. As Ernest Hemingway clearly demonstrated, stories are best told with an economy of words, 6 to be exact. For sale, baby shoes, never worn. Can't you just see the story unfold in your mind? The image of the shoes, the heartbreak of the mother, the questions that come up in our minds. What happened? This is great storytelling. Let's dig in a little deeper and look at the why, how, and what of storytelling. Let's start with the why. Stories are engaging. They grab the attention of your audience. They're relevant and relatable. We see ourselves inside of stories. The stories hold meaning for us. Stories are also memorable and easy to be retold. It starts with putting a picture in the mind of your audience. Take a moment and picture your favorite vacation home growing up. See it in your mind's eye. You don't even need to close your eyes. Can you see the color of your home? The trees, the grass, the sidewalk, the driveway? Now picture something pleasant that happened there when you were a child. Who was there? What happened? How did it make you feel? Can you see it? There, I just moved you from your analytical, judging part of your brain to the visual, emotional part. Everyone watching is seeing a picture of their own lives, a moment that mattered. When you do this for an audience, they immediately become open and receptive to your message. This is a powerful thing, and it's something that each of you can do as well. Now let's talk about the how of storytelling. It begins with understanding the structure of a great story, as well as what it takes to be a storyteller. Let's start with the structure. There needs to be a main character. This is the person central to the story that we build a connection to, that we see go through changes. They need to have a worthy goal, something that pulls them forward, a passion with a purpose. There's a barrier or a challenge that gets in the way. This is where the story gets compelling. We see them struggle on how to approach and deal with the challenge. We're witness to their decision as well as the action that they take. We get to see the outcome as well and the resulting transformation. The other part of storytelling and the how of storytelling is what it means to be a storyteller. Let me give you an example that pulls this together. A couple of years ago, I was asked to coach the president of a local bank here in the Boston area as he prepared to do a keynote presentation to 500 credit risk officers. A very authentic person and leader, but he had a lot of work to do if he was going to be successful in this keynote. At the beginning, we worked on vocal presence, vocal intonation, how to take the stage, body language. And I asked him, I said, Daryl, we don't want you behind a podium. We want you out in front. He said, well, I'm not sure if that's going to work. Here, let me share with you the opening that I've been working on. He took 2 minutes to thank all the people that helped him get the presentation, this keynote. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, the audience he's going to put them to sleep. So I said, Daryl, if I may, I know you put a lot of time in practicing this. I'm not sure if this is your best opening. Let's try the story we've been working on. A little smoke came out of his ears, but he said, okay. I said, well, you have a 45-minute presentation. I don't think you're going to want to memorize the whole thing, so why don't we print it out? You don't want to hold on to this while you're standing in front of them. Let's put it into a binder. You don't want to hold the binder, so let's find a stand. Do you have a music stand? He said, well, actually, my son plays string bass. Yes. I said, great, bring it in next time and we'll practice. And that's what we did. Here's the result. He walks onto stage holding the music stand and the binder in his hand. He puts the music stand down, opens the binder, puts it down on the stand, and then looks up. What do you think the audience is thinking at that point? Well, one thing, he has all of their attention, and they're thinking, what's going to happen? Is he going to do a poem? What's he going to do? He lifts his head and says, it's 10:30 at night. I'm getting out of the cab in downtown Nashville with my wife. We just got back from the Grand Ole Opry. Even if you're not a country music fan, you have to go. It's fantastic. We get out of the cab, and it's packed. There's hundreds of people pouring out of the bars, all the music, you can hear it everywhere. My wife says to me, Daryl, can we get something to eat? I said, it's 10:30 at night, really? I said, yeah, I'm really hungry. Great, anything but barbecue. We make our way through the throng. We see the sign, Mario's. Italian restaurant. Let's go. We walk up in front. It's packed, but it doesn't look like any Italian restaurant we've ever seen. How bad could it be? So the waitress seats us in one of those vinyl booths with the red vinyl with the gray duct tape. We look at each other and go, a little suspect. She brings over one of those laminated menus, and it was a little bit grimy. We're getting a little worried, but we stay. We order the margarita pizza. It's as easy as it could be. 20 minutes later, it comes on one of those stands. It tasted like cardboard. We didn't get sick. It was an acceptable risk. And this was the magic that happened. That was the bridge to his presentation. He said, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. Community banking is not banking by the numbers. It's about understanding someone's story. It's about acceptable risk. He was amazed, and that's the power of a story. This is an example of direct narrative storytelling. This type of storytelling works well in business, and it's a form that brings to life moments that matter from our personal experience and then shared in a business context. Direct narrative storytelling allows your audience to walk shoulder to shoulder with you. Your audience will see what you see, feel what you feel. Your experience becomes their experience. Now let's take a closer look at the critical elements of this type of storytelling. I'm going to tell you another story, and I want you to pay attention to the technical aspects of the story. I'm 5 years old. It's a hot, sunny summer day. The wind is wet and salty on my face. I'm sitting in the back of my uncle's boat with a hot dog in my hand, and I'm miserable. I look over my shoulder, and I see my two brothers and my cousin in the rowboat rowing away, having a great time. I can't go with them. I can never go with them. My mother, father, aunt, uncle, they're having a good time laughing, and I'm miserable. I hear the sound of seagulls over my head. I think they're laughing at me. The smell of diesel's making me sick. And all of a sudden, I just stood up. My head blew off. The hot dog went flying, and in defiance, boosh, I jump into the water. My mother doesn't know what to do. My father, he's frozen. My uncle takes the boat hook, brings me back onto the boat. He puts me in front of my father. My father looks at me and says, "What the heck were you thinking?" I said, "I'm always left behind." When I think back at this story, yes, it was a pattern. The youngest of four, or two brothers and a cousin. And I was always sort of the outsider. And what it's done for me is it's built a sensitivity, an awareness of those that stand on the outside, the quiet ones. And from a leadership perspective, I always bring everyone's voice into the room. Now, you might have noticed that I told the story in first person, present tense. This takes a bit of getting used to, but it is the foundation of direct narrative storytelling. I utilize sensory details, the smell of diesel, the sound of the seagulls. The wind was wet and salty on my face. I also use my face, body, voice, and emotions to bring the experience to life. Now let's look at it through story structure. I was the main character. What was my worthy goal? To belong, to join in the fun. The barrier was my parents' firm no. The decision I made was not a rational one, and the action I took was quite extreme, and I also had to live with the outcome for about 2 weeks. This is a picture of me on that day. I found this after I actually practiced this story. You can see it all in this picture. Now, the what of storytelling is all about choosing the right story for the right moment. Let me bring this to life for you. If you remember Daryl, we worked as a coaching relationship for quite a while. He brought me in to work with his leadership team on an offsite. Halfway through, he said, "Everyone, I need to leave for about 90 minutes. We just acquired a small bank on the North Shore of Boston, and I need to go speak to the 30 people there." And I asked, "So what are you going to say?" He said, "Well, I'm just going to tell them the nuts and bolts." And then I asked, "Daryl, have you ever been in that situation before?" He says, "Oh, you want me to tell a story?" I said, "I'm not telling you what to do. I just asked you a question." He says, "I got it." He came back with a big smile on his face. "What happened?" I asked. He said, "I got in front of the 30 people and I said, I'm sure you weren't expecting to be here today, and I can't imagine how you're feeling. Actually, I think I might have an idea. 15 years ago, I was in your very same seat. I was part of a small bank. We were just about to acquire another small bank when we were told we were acquired by the big bank of Boston. I'm walking into the office the next morning. I get greeted by a man in a blue uniform with a brown box and a pink slip. The box had all of my things in it. He gave me the box and the pink slip and said, "Good luck." I'm standing in the parking lot with the brown box and the pink slip, and I had no idea what I was going to do. I have 2 kids under the age of 4 and a big mortgage. So all of you right here, right now, you're now one of us. You want a job here? Come talk to us. We'll find you one. If not, we'll help you get settled, because that's who we are. And then he says, 2 people came up to me at the end of this presentation and said, "Daryl, thank you very much for what you said. Up until now, we didn't think bankers were human beings." Truth. So stories answer the unmet questions in people's minds. Who are you and why should I care? Stories meet people where they are and open them up to an alternative way of seeing a situation. How do we know what these questions are? We need to take the time to reflect and get into the shoes of our audience and walk a bit of their terrain. What are they thinking and feeling? What matters most to them? What are their fears and concerns? Once we learn how to do this, we can then search in our own lives for a time that captures a similar experience. This is what Daryl did so effectively. For many of you, you might be charged with encouraging adoption around a strategic or technical initiative, the organizational change story. To begin to build momentum behind any message of change, you can't just expect people to follow you. It's important to learn how to overcome any resistance to your message by meeting people where they are and acknowledging what they're thinking and feeling. This opens them up to your ideas and makes it much easier to see themselves inside of the organizational journey. Think of it like this. As a communicator, if you are a freight train, you start at one point, build momentum up, and don't stop for anything or anyone until you reach your destination. No one can get on board, at least safely. We need to think about ourselves more like a passenger train. We have plenty of power. We can build momentum. But when we want to invite people to join us, we need to slow down, pull into the station, stop, give them time to get on, find a seat, make them comfortable before building momentum again. Here's an example about how many organizations try to explain the change journey. Seems straightforward, but does the image create instant meaning for you? Does it resonate deeply? Can you see yourself inside of this journey? Not a chance. Let's take a look at a few images that depict a variety of journeys. Here's one. This is the journey of evolution. When you see it, you get it right away. We see this is our process to standing up straight. And you can actually see and look at an organization go through each one of these stages. Here's a familiar one. This is the journey of transformation. This one makes immediate sense to us. We've all seen it before. And there's so much nuance you can bring to this image. Here's one I really like. It's the journey to freedom, I like to call it. It truly evokes emotion and a sense of flight. The effective use of metaphoric imagery and analogies are powerful ways to create meaning for others. If enough people agree with the metaphor, it might catch on and be passed into wider use. But it's important to choose wisely because they're very sticky and memorable. Another way to weave a story about the organizational journey and build momentum is with narrative frameworks. Narrative frameworks allow others to see themselves inside of the story. These structures bring vision and strategy to life. People can see the part that they play and how the effort that they make contributes to the overall success of the organization. Once we do this, it's much easier to build momentum. Let me introduce you to one that I call the aspirational narrative. It's the then, now, next sequence, or past, present, future. Then, the past. What was important to us? What were we known for? How did we do those things? Why did we do them? Now, where are we? What's changed? What's important to us now? Next, the future. Where are we going? Why is this important? What can you expect from us? What do we need from you? Let's try to use this narrative as a way to tell the story of a fast-growing organization. Here we go. As many of you might remember, at the start of our journey, we were quite entrepreneurial. We held a self-reliant mindset. Nothing was impossible to us. Our mission was to get the business up and running. Speed was the key. Our goal was to establish ourselves in the market. We experimented and took risks. If something didn't work, we dropped it, pivoted into a different direction. Not the most efficient process, but it got us down the road fast. We acted like a speedboat. Short, sharp turns were easy, and it got us to where we are now. See, it's at this point, once you set the context, you can then insert a personal, direct narrative story or two that brings some moments to life. Take the time to celebrate the moments that mattered. Call out specific individuals that made a difference and celebrate them. This creates a unified experience. Then you're ready to move on to explain the confusing present now. Over the past few years, we've been hit head on with a tough economy. Our way of operating was challenged. We're not as nimble as we were before. We're no longer the speedboat, but find ourselves acting more like an ocean liner that was battered at sea. Well, as you all know, we needed to pull into port to stop the bleeding. And this is what we did. We shut things down quickly, and it worked. We got ourselves back to profitability. See, now's the time to bring the next vision to life. As we look ahead, we now realize we're much larger. Decisions are more complex. Stakes are higher. It takes a lot longer to turn the ship. We need to change the way we act and make decisions, and we can't do it alone. We need to collaborate with each other and with our external partners. This is where you can now highlight your mission, purpose, vision, and strategy to create inspired action. Examples in this process, let me give you a classic example of this process for creating inspired action. In the early 80s, this was a business case that I learned at Harvard Business School. SAS Airlines, Swedish Airlines, was in receivership. And Jan Carlson was a leader that came on. He was a turnaround artist, an amazing leader. When he walked in, he asked the leadership team, "What's your vision?" And they said, "To be the best airline in the world." And he thought to himself, that's kind of like trying to cure world hunger. How do you operationalize that? So then he asked, he said, "When are you at your organizational best? When do you do your best work?" And they thought for a moment and said, "Well, when we're serving the frequent business traveler. Short flights, we get to know the people, they get to know us, we build a relationship over time." Together, they said, well, let's narrow down and focus our efforts to be the best airline in the world serving the frequent business traveler. And then he said, how are we going to achieve that? This is a strategy, the how. Two strategies, two pillars come to mind. The first one, drive decision-making down the line. In other words, the people that are right there on the ground. In the past, if something had happened to one of the passengers, they would make a note of it. It would go upstairs to middle management. It would take about 3 weeks for them to make a decision. By then, the customer has already switched airlines. This is something that they wanted to drive to the line. So if something happened, the note would be brought right to that gate attendant. They would meet the person coming off the flight and give them a voucher. So you're very important to us. This made a difference. The next most important strategic pillar was talking about getting the right equipment. This meant the right planes. They needed small regional jets. What they had were some regional jets and 4 massive, big airliners. So he stood in front of this glass window with this entire team with these 4 planes behind him. He looked at them and said, wow, these are beautiful planes, aren't they? They all were in love with them. This was the pride of the fleet. And he said, so let me ask you a question. What's our vision? To be the best airline in the world serving the frequent business traveler. What's the strategy? To use short, more efficient planes, smaller ones. He said, how much money is tied up into these 4 planes? It was in the billions of dollars. It didn't take him having to tell them to sell them. They got it themselves. This is the power of clear vision and strategy to create inspired action. So if you struggle bringing your vision and strategy to life, try using a narrative structure like the one we just reviewed. Create a plan that puts it as a top priority in your list of actions as a leader. Now, many of you might be thinking, I don't have the time to do this. I don't have any stories. As leaders in your organization, it's up to you to take the lead on communicating the organizational journey. It starts with embodying your values and behaviors. And there's no better way to communicate and demonstrate this than through storytelling. Remember, leadership is not a position. It's a mindset that we adopt and an action that we take. Get your team together and dig for stories and examples that bring your organizational value to life. See yourself as a story archaeologist, then become an amplifier of these stories. Once you begin to get the idea of how to write and deliver these narratives and stories, you'll begin to see how powerfully they resonate with your audience. You'll also begin to see that storytelling is an essential leadership skill. So here we are. If you're looking to enhance your own executive presence and storytelling capabilities, here are a few ways to start. Reach out to me. My email is below. Let's start a conversation. I'm happy to offer you a free virtual presence audit. This is very powerful as we're spending much more time online. I'll invite you to attend one of my free monthly webinars on enhancing your leadership impact online. I'll also introduce you to my 16-week online learning experience called Effortless Executive Presence Accelerator. It's a game changer. I look forward to hearing from you all soon.